Yes, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live. Tonight is a very special episode. We have one of the best ultra marathon runners in the world. We are joined by Sage Canaday. This guy is amazing, incredible athlete. Can't wait to talk to him tonight. If you have any questions for Sage, ask him in the chat room below. And of course, we're also joined by Mr. LA Runner himself, Billy Yang.
What is up, everyone?
Yeah, go ahead. Time in, Billy, whenever you want. That's fine. I'm very excited to have these two guys on the show tonight. Welcome to another episode of Ginger Runner Live. Ginger Runner. Yes! Oh my God, I'm so excited for tonight. I have been highly anticipating this episode. I've been nervous to ask Sage if he'd come on the show. We got him, Sage Canaday, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this guy, one of the best ultra runners in the world. Sage, thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to be on the show.
So we're going to talk about all things racing. We're going to talk about your new film that you've been working on and all the films that you've been working on, your YouTube channel, stuff like that. I want to talk about your coaching stuff, your website. But before we get to that, I have to also introduce Billy, Mr. LA Runner. How you doing, Billy? Now you can say how you doing.
I'm fantastic. Sorry, Ethan. It was my first time. I'm still getting used to things.
It's okay. It's all of our first time in the presence of greatness such as Sage. Just a badass dude.
Can we talk about beers? Because I'm really excited about mine.
That's actually why I didn't want to talk about anything too specific yet, because on our show tonight we actually have 3 beer drinkers. So tonight I actually am already polishing off my first. It's a very refreshing summer brew. It's a Steigl Radler. Now, you can't find many Radlers in the States. This particular one is a grapefruit Radler. It's essentially beer mixed with a like a fruit soda almost. It's absolutely delicious and super refreshing. But this is not what I'm drinking on the show. It's just a refreshing starter. In honor of Sage's presence, I will be drinking Avery Salvation, because Sage, one of his sponsors, is Avery Brewing. And I have to talk to him about how the hell he got a brewery as a sponsor, because that's amazing. Yeah. So it's a Colorado beer, Avery Salvation. Billy, do you want to go next? Do you want Sage to introduce his?
Well, I'll just do mine real quick. It's the Deschutes Brewery Freshly Squeezed IPA. Just had this for the first time yesterday, finally, and it is delicious. Good. I highly recommend it. Good. But I'm also a fan of Avery, and I'm anxious to see what Sage is drinking tonight. What you got?
I'm just drinking the standard Avery IPA. It's a tried and true IPA. Great flavor, nice and smooth. I have about one of these every night. It's my favorite go-to Avery brew. But I mean, it makes tons of stuff. Like what Ginger Runner's drinking there, Salvation, really top notch in the big bottle there. So.
Yeah, there's not much Avery in Southern California, at least in the beverage stores near me. I'm sure there's a lot like near Billy's store and stuff like that. But this particular bottle, I didn't even look at it when I bought it. I was like, oh, Avery, got to get it. And then before the show, Sage is like, oh yeah, that's pretty alcoholic. And I looked at it. Sure enough, it's about 9%, almost 10%.
Nice.
So it's a big bottle. I'll be drinking this tonight on the show. Not only you're going to get Sage on our show tonight, but you're also going to get drunk Ginger. So what better way to bring in an all-star ultra runner than to be drunk during the process?
Awesome. It'll be fun.
So Sage, let's pop this beer.
Open it up.
Gotta do this thing first. Oh, look at that.
Gotta get through the foil.
Gotta get some of that foil off. All right, this is my first Avery, so I'm really excited. Here we go. Oh, that's going to go down real easy tonight. That is delicious. That is a Belgian-style golden ale, and it's absolutely delightful. Really, really enjoy it. Sage, let's just get into this. So you're fresh off a race, not just any race, but one of the probably most premier races early in the year across the globe. Transvulcania takes place on La Palma. You got 3rd place, which is incredible. You were in 1st place for a majority of that race, and you finished strong. You got 3rd place, just behind Kilian Jornet. How did that race feel for you? Because I know 2013 you also got 3rd place. and you came in like super trained for this one. You were ready. You were on point. That course is no joke. Take us through the process of what was going through your head before the race, during the race, and after.
Yeah, so it was actually an amazing race. It's for those of people that don't know, it's basically on this volcanic island. La Palma is right off the coast of Morocco. I think it's about 100 kilometers away from Morocco. You get the hot air from the Sahara blowing over, but it's owned by Spain, so it's it's a Spanish-speaking country, and you start at sea level on the beach, and you're down at the crashing waves in the dark, and you basically climb this 8,000-foot volcano up and down through technical rock. And by the time you get to the top, you're about 32 miles in, and you've climbed 13,000 feet. And then you have to descend at, yeah, because it goes up and down. So it's got 13,000 feet of vertical in the first 32 miles. Then you have an 8,000-foot drop in about 8 miles. That's extremely technical, down to the beach. And then, to add insult to injury, in the last 5K, you have to climb about 1,000 feet up to the finish line. So it's a 45-mile race, a little over 14,000 feet of vertical, and a lot of technical trail, a lot of sand running, too. You're actually running on this loose volcanic rock sand mixture, which makes the footing horrible. But yeah, I felt pretty good about the race, given that I was coming off Lake Sonoma again 4 weeks prior. And anytime you have to come off a different type of ultra within a month, it's hard to be recovered and tapered and trained for these different events because they're so much different. Lake Sonoma is a totally different race than this race.
Yeah, you got third at Lake Sonoma, which is incredible as well, especially being just before this race. And that one, I'm familiar with the course a little bit. It's a little bit more buffed out. There are some technical sections, but it's a bit more buffed out rolling. The entire course is rolling. I think there's a total of 10,000 feet in that race entirely. So, I mean, I guess you're living in Colorado. How do you train for a race that is on a volcano and on a volcanic island? It sounds insane.
It is, and part of the adjustment is really getting kind of heat training in. So it was pretty hot during the race. It got up, I think it was in the 80s probably coming down. So I wasn't really acclimated to that because in Boulder we have some warm days in the spring. Sometimes it'll be 70 if you're lucky. But it was also snowing. It snowed last week here in Boulder actually.
Oh
so
a
lot of running I was doing in some snow or at least like 30s, 40s degree temperatures. And I just try to wear an extra jacket to work up a sweat and kind of put myself in that state of dehydration almost that you inevitably experience during a hot ultramarathon race when you're pushing yourself. So I did that, and I tried to get in as much vertical as I could, but I really didn't have a whole lot of time to train specifically for the demands of the race. It's hard to do that because it's hard to find that kind of mountains, even in the Rockies here, where you have to go up so fast and so hard.
Yeah, that sounds like a one-of-a-kind experience. That's something that you can't really get, I mean, that I know of in the States where you're running 30 miles and getting 13,000 feet of vertical. You said technical, too, and I'm guessing that volcanic rock is some harsh stuff.
Oh, it's totally, it gets in your shoes. It's loose footing. At some points you're going up 20-30% grade, and you're kind of power hiking because you have to.
Oh my God.
And it's like 1 foot forward, half a step back.
Didn't Emily kind of, she had a rough fall, right, where she spliced up her hand and had to drop?
Yeah, Emily Forsberg, the returning champion and ultra star, she was in the start. It was the first 400 meters. You have to get out onto this narrow trail, and there's like 2,000 plus runners in the race. And so it got a little congested. It's pitch black. You have your headlamp on. And so she got tangled up in some other runners, went down on the volcanic rock, but she stuck her arm out, and so it shredded her arm. And I don't think she realized till about maybe 10 miles later that she was bleeding quite profusely. And so she ended up having to drop out, and she had to have some sort of surgery. At least she had it all stitched up, and by the time I saw her, she had it up in a cast, like it was almost broken. But I think it was pretty serious. She lost a lot of blood, and so hopefully she'll be able to recover for the rest of the season.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often in these European type races, where you look at some of the terrain and the steepness of them. They're insane, and they're just flying down like it's nothing, like it's a paved road. I mean, these guys are just incredible to watch.
Like Zagama is another one of those. You see some of the films from Zagama, and yeah, the European technical trails. You can't compare them. There's not much in the States you can compare them to because they're straight up, super technical, and these runners are just they're treating it like it's nothing. They're just running up, running down, and stuff like that.
Not a whole lot of switchbacks either, you know.
Not yeah, it's
Yeah,
like straight up
yeah.
to the top. So it's incredible to see a performance like that, Sage, 2 years in a row too at the same race, where you're coming in at such a high level. I mean, third place in a race like that, which is not only technical, throwing you for a loop with heat and stuff like that, but I have to give you major congratulations, and it's awesome, man. It's awesome. Way to represent the United States as
Heck
well
yeah.
out there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's I felt good about it. Of course, the goal's always to try to win, but against Killian and the guy who won, Luis Alberto, who's in the Olympics actually. He's an Olympian Nordic athlete.
That's right.
It's just tough to compete against them, and hopefully I get to race them again at some other courses, because I'd like to go back there still next year and try to improve on my place and/or time. It's always you're trying to just get one place higher, run 10 minutes faster, and make that breakthrough.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say that I think it was either an I Run Far interview or something like that. I heard that Killian passed you at the exact same place as he passed you last year.
It was, yeah. It was about 23 miles into the race, and it was actually Luis. He's actually was climbing faster. I think he beat Killian to the top. So he's a stronger climber.
Okay.
He actually was using his trekking poles too to climb. He's very efficient doing
Wizard
that.
sticks? People are calling them wizard sticks.
Yeah, basically. Which in the loose sand is not a bad idea if you know how to use them. I'm too uncoordinated to use them, but yeah, it was really weird. I hit a low patch and I was really hurting. I thought I was going to drop out the next aid station. That was my plan, was to drop out, and I was not moving very fast, and they were also climbing really hard. I think they were gaining on me the whole time after about 15 miles, and yeah, they just blew right past me. And this year I couldn't even hang with them. Last year I kind of hung with them a little bit, but this year they were just gone.
Wow. So when you say you're hitting a rough patch, what is that for an elite? What is hitting a rough patch? Like what is going through your mind there, or is it something that's going on with your stomach, or what's happening?
My stomach was good. I basically, the first indicator was I start seeing stars.
Oh,
so
wow.
I had my sunglasses down, my shades, my visor, Smith Optics shades, all the way down.
Nice, by the way, yeah. I like
thanks. And I started seeing this flickering light, and I was like, "There's no way that's the sun coming up," because the sun was off to the side, and I had my shades down, and I start seeing this flashing light, and then you start losing peripheral vision a little bit, and that happens when I start to bonk, basically. And I mean, your legs are screaming at you. You start to go numb a little bit. My fingers go numb, and you start feeling numb in your legs, basically. And mentally, there's this shift where you get this overwhelming desire to just stop, kind of.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
quit,
okay.
or like you want to sleep too because you're kind of tired. And so it's the bonky feeling. I think everyone could relate to that feeling right before you're about to cross over and get reduced to a walk or have to sit down. So out of desperation, I took 3 V-Fuel gels all at once, and it helped. I was able to get out of that a little bit, but I still wasn't moving fast. My legs were pretty much pooped. I figure I have about 8,000 feet of hard climbing in my legs right now, and then they start kind of shutting down. And I think that's what happened this year and last year.
So do you think that you were able to get back on track by taking those gels, and then also the downhill after the big climbs? Like, were you able to kind of recompress and recenter yourself on the downhills and kind of regauge?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of it, I was going to DNF at the top. That was my plan. But when I got up there, I was still in third, and I looked over my shoulder, and I couldn't see fourth place behind me. So I was like, you know what, you should try to finish. It's all downhill from here. Granted, it's a technical downhill, but in terms of like an energy standpoint, you think of, you know, the amount of work it takes to move your body uphill versus downhill, and you're like, well, I could start stumbling down this hill at least. Like, even if I have to walk, I'm still moving through these technical rocks at a decent rate, and I anticipated I'd get rolled up by 10 guys, honestly.
Yeah.
And I was able to regroup, though. I craved salt really bad, which was weird because I actually dropped my salt pills and my electrolyte tablets accidentally. They
Oh, no.
fell out of my pocket during the race. I had no idea. And so when I reached for them, they were gone. And then later I heard from the other Americans that they saw this bag of S-caps and electrolyte tabs on the trail.
Did it say Sage Canaday's secret stash on it or something?
No, but it had a gin in it, so that was a dead
yeah.
giveaway. I like the gins for in case I get a stomach ache. So they were like, "Oh yeah, I saw your gin and your pills and everything," and I was like, "Yeah, I needed that." But the aid stations would have weird things. Unlike American races, they don't always have potato chips or salt pills or anything like that. So I craved saltiness. They had bananas, so I grabbed some bananas, carried them with me. I grabbed a giant cookie, I carried it with me. I grabbed a ham and cheese sandwich at the top. And since I'm vegetarian, I tried to pick out the ham. I should have left the cheese in because that would have been salty. And I just kind of started stuffing the bread in my mouth because I also craved pasta. Like I really wanted salty pasta, which that's never happened to me during a 50-mile race.
That's
so
crazy.
I survived.
Yeah. I mean, that also brings up another good point. We talked a little bit before the show about. I know that you're a vegetarian vegan, and as am I. And when you travel internationally, that has to be a problem in some countries where you have to have a strict diet. Do you end up bringing ingredients from home? I know, like Timothy Olsen brings some stuff from home that he can rely on as having like base ingredients and stuff like that. Do you do anything like that, or do you know what the aid stations have before you go into a race like this, or?
I brought the one thing I brought was all my gels, and I also brought the S-caps and the gins, and I would have brought some of the Yugo bars, sponsored by Yugo bars. They make these almond fruit bars, but a lot of times you can't import those into a foreign country. Like they'll nab them at customs, so I didn't bring those. But I did bring all my gels because this race didn't have any gels at the aid stations either. So you have to carry all 20 gels or however many you need. I need about that many with you, and you check them, and travel with that. And then I brought some instant coffee too for the morning, just because I wasn't sure they'd have espresso going at 3 a.m.
Sage, you alluded to some of the more unconventional or unfamiliar type foods, especially if Americans, if you don't know what to expect. Can you kind of go into what else their aid stations had, or maybe something a little bit unusual? I know they're big on their cheese and their like prosciuttos, like ham slices, or some of the other things that you saw at the aid station.
Yeah, I'm surprised. When you said they don't have gels, I'm even surprised by that. Not necessarily branded gels, but even the European like tube type gels. So what do they have?
They had a lot of fruit, a lot of bananas. I ate some apple slices too. I didn't even know what they were. I just grabbed them. I think they had dates. They had dates or raisins. I think they were dates though. They're big. And then, in New Zealand, I've run across grapes, bunches of grapes. So they're really big on fruit. A lot of bananas. Bananas are the main export in La Palma, so it's part of the island's identity. And those are good to have. I carried half a banana with me at a couple aid stations. Good potassium, good refreshment. Pretty easy on the stomach. I think they had these little. They were like gummy worms. I didn't have them, but I heard Dave Laney had them because he started with only 2 gels, so he ended up relying on all those gummy worms. So he was eating gummy worms, but it was a lot of sugar, a lot of sweet stuff, and they did have a sports drink that was kind of like Gatorade. It was actually probably better than Gatorade. It was kind of this orange, like refreshing orange type of flavor. I don't know. And they had Coca-Cola too. Was it Steigl?
Was it a Radler? They were just serving Radler to people.
Yeah, I wish. That's what I felt like too. When I was thinking about dropping out, I was like, well, I know at the aid station at the top, supposedly they have this air-conditioned tent where they do serve pasta, and I was thinking I could stop there and have a plate of pasta and a beer, because that's what I've heard people have done. And I was like, that would be nice. But then I was thinking about the logistics. I was like, well, I'd be stranded there. I wouldn't get to see the finish or take a long bus ride back down. And, I was still in 3rd place. I had to compete. And I'm fortunate that I decided not to stop because the competitive drive overcame that, fortunately.
Wow. Now, are you planning on racing internationally again this year? Are you planning on going back out across seas?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I was just looking at maybe booking my plane ticket to next month, the end of June, June 28th, is the Skyrunning World Championships in Chamonix, and it's I was going to do the Mont Blanc Marathon.
Oh
I
yeah,
think Killian will be there, Luis will probably be there again, Marco de Gasperi will be there, all the top mountain runners, pretty much in Europe, and a lot from the U.S. I think each country is sending a couple over there, so that'll probably be my next big trail race. It's a marathon. I'll do Mount Washington the week before that in the U.S. here, and then I'd like to go back to France again. I'm doing I think it's Le Templier. It's a 50-mile race at the end of October, and it's a real good one. They're trying to get a lot of Americans over there to kind of have a U.S. versus France team aspect to it.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I've never run in France before, so it's pretty exciting.
I mean, just seeing all the videos and stuff like Killian puts out, it looks incredible. Would you spend more time there? So would you take a couple weeks to enjoy the scenery and sights and go run the trails before you raced in Chamonix?
Maybe later in the year, not for June because I'm doing Mount Washington the week before. Mount Washington's on the June 21st, so
okay.
I'll be in New Hampshire then, and then it'll be kind of a rush to get out and get to France and overcome jet lag in 2 days and race it and then come back. But hopefully I could extend my trip when I go over in the fall. I'd like to be able to spend some time over there and just relax after the race would probably be the best part because before the race you're all tense and you're trying to figure out this and this and this, but I definitely like to relax more after a race and actually have like a enjoyable vacation. And then the same thing goes with Transvulcania next year. I think that race it would be really advantageous to be there like 3 weeks beforehand to acclimate and to train on the course just to get used to running in sand again and to really know the course well. It seems like it'd be a huge advantage.
I mean, that's what Frosty did. Yeah, Frosty's I think spent 3 or 4 weeks there this year. I think she spent double that last year or in 2012 when she won as well. And
yeah,
the performance
paid off. She won both years.
Billy, what were you going to say?
No, real quick, Sage. Did you have any plans to come back to the States to defend your speedcoat crown, or I don't know? You threw out a lot of races out there. I don't know how dense your schedule is.
Yeah, no, Speedgoat's on the list. Since I'm doing the Skyrunning series again, and it's the Skyrunning Ultra series, and so you have to do 3 races, and most of them are in Europe, but the two major ones in the U.S. are Speedgoat and then the Rut. And the Rut's actually the final this year, so I'll be trying to get points at Speedgoat to defend my title too, but also get points for the series and then do the Rut 50K in September to close out the series. And if Killian wants to close out the series, he's going to have to come back to the U.S. and do that too. So.
I think that's on his calendar from interviews that I've seen with him. He has talked about the Rut, a lot of the Solomon crew and stuff like that have talked about it. So that would be exciting, and that's in Montana.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be really great. I want to remind those of you who are watching live that please, if you have any questions for Sage, leave them in the chat room, which is the comments just below this video. We will be asking them throughout the show, and in fact, we're going to go to the chat room right now, and we'll also have a post show where we'll just go through the chat room and ask all the questions that maybe we missed during the broadcast. I'm going to go way back towards the beginning, Sage. This is from Conkin Was Right. Sage, any plans to attempt to break the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim FKT?
Yes, that would be. I thought about that, and then I was going to do it in April, or try to do it in April this year, but then I committed to Lake Sonoma, and then now I feel like it's too hot, and then I could try maybe in November, but it's just. It was on my list to do this year, and then I signed up for all these races and realized that it might be a bad idea because it would be an all-out race effort. But eventually, that's the one FKT that I really, really would like to try to go after. And I think it would take a lot of experience in the canyon probably to break it because it's such a tough time. And then also, I think it would take a good day in terms of weather. It would take a good day in terms of not hitting a mule train. and you just have to be on. So I think it might take several attempts for anyone to even lower that time if it's going to happen. But maybe next year. I don't think it'll fit into my busy racing schedule this year, just because you can't do it in the summer. I think it's too hot. So you'd have to be either in April or October, November. I might give it a go in November. I don't know. It depends if I do JFK 50 or if I want to focus on the North Face in December.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, if you do North Face, I'll see you there. We're all gonna be there for sure for the 50 mile.
Oh, awesome.
In December. But yeah, our friend Chris Vargo, who I think you know, was just there this last weekend, and he was saying it was 85 degrees or something in the base of the canyon at 4 a.m.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah.
That's not good. So if it's already that hot, I mean, it's summer season. It's just gonna get hotter.
You gotta wait till end of October at least, November.
Yeah, and that's on all of our lists. That's like a bucket list thing to do. And as the canyon gets more and more crowded too, with runners and hikers, and there's this whole we have to get along type thing. We all have to get along on that trail, because before you know it, they're going to be requiring permits, and they're going to be, putting rules and regulations on it, and that would just suck. I would love to see you go for the FKT. I know that Krar talks about his FKT as being kind of like a magic symmetry of all things aligning, the weather aligning, the trails not being crowded, the mule trains not being too much of an issue. So yeah, I think it's just going to be the right day, the right time, and it's going to happen,
I'm worried about the mules the most, honestly. I run into horses sometimes on the trail, and I've had to stop, and you wait, and I mean, they have a right to be there. They've been there longer than most of the runners, so there's that. But it just seems like unless there's a consistent schedule that I don't know about, it'd suck to hit one of those when you're coming up the final climb, or even starting off on the descent.
Suck. Yeah. The last climb, you're like, I'm getting it, and then it's just a giant mule train, and you're like, well, nope, there it goes.
Yeah, after 40 miles.
After 40 miles, like even Vargo was saying from his last weekend, he just went for like a little run. He went for like, I think he went North Rim to South Rim, just as like a fun run for him. And he was saying that he did hit a mule train and gave them full awareness of his presence, and he kind of pulled off to the trail, and he almost got bucked off the trail. He said he basically was inches away from dying.
Oh yeah, you could die in a couple of spots.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying. I guess it's all part of the adventure, though.
Yeah.
Okay. In the chat room, Will Porter, Hoka versus Clifton, referring to the Hoka shoes. I'm looking into getting one of these when they come out. Currently, I'm wearing the Bondi 2, but want something a little bit lighter. Which would you prefer?
I prefer. Well, it depends on what his running goals are. I prefer the Hoka personally, just because it's a little more responsive. It's a firmer ride. It has the new R-Mat cushioning in it.
R-Mat, yeah.
Whereas the Clifton's a little bit of a softer EVA, and the Clifton's also more, I feel like, really specific for the road, whereas the Hoka is also specific for the road, but I've been racing in it on the trails. I raced in it at Transvulcania, I raced in it at Lake Sonoma, Tarawera, and the Carlsbad Marathon this year.
Wow,
and so
really versatile.
I like the feel of that a little bit better. And I've been wearing prototypes in sample size, which is a little too small for me right now. So it's hard for me to say. I think they're getting feedback actually and still improving the design, or at least they were last month when I talked to them. So the Clifton is an ounce lighter, and if he's used to the Bondi and he's running on the roads, he'd probably really like the Clifton. I think the price point's a little lower on that. It's a little more affordable. So, I mean, I really like them both, but if I had to pick one for the trails, I'd pick the Hoka.
Related to that, Dana Campbell asked, and it seems to be somewhat of a common complaint or feedback, any plans for wider Hokas?
I don't know. I know they've gotten that feedback a lot because they don't make any 2E widths. The Hoka, most of the fit on most of the shoes isn't that wide. It's a pretty medium width. So if you have if your feet are a little wide, then it's definitely a tough design feature. But I know they've heard that feedback, and they've heard other design feedback things, and I've tested out the newer models, and I know that the fit is a little bit different, and I hope they come out with 2E widths, because I used to sell shoes at shoe stores a lot, and I know how many people need a 2E, or just a shoe that kind of fits more the curvature of your feet. If your feet get swollen during an ultra, it'd be better to have a extra space between the toes, for sure.
Yeah, everyone that I've talked to at Hoka and the guy that I work with, they're always really receptive. No matter, like, all the reviews that I put out for Hokas, there's certain issues with certain shoes and stuff like that I've said, and they've been very receptive and totally open to critiques and stuff. Not all shoe brands are, so I appreciate that they are. I think that's really cool, and they're still innovating, which I think is neat, because they are a fairly new shoe company in the whole realm of some of the bigger names and stuff like that. So it's cool to see what they're coming out with. Is there a reason that you signed with Hoka? I mean, were you running in Hokas before you signed with them? Was there something that drew you to that particular brand?
Hoka was, they actually approached me 2 years ago, and they were one of the first companies that actually approached me. Although most of the sponsorships I got were initiated by me. Like, I'd send out a lot of emails that were not responded to for, like, nutrition things or different types of equipment that you use in running. But in terms of footwear, I knew about them, and then they contacted me, and I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. But I wasn't really sold on them till this past year, when they showed me the lighter prototypes. And it was the lighter prototypes that I was like, hey, these are nice. They're actually 8 to 7 ounces, and I know I could run fast in an 8 to 7 ounce shoe. Yeah. And I've never been really a minimalist. I've always been kind of I wouldn't say anti-minimalism, but I don't run in really super thin shoes. I'm not obsessed about the drop. If it's a low profile shoe, I think I could race well in it. If it's a 10 millimeter drop shoe, I'm not worried about it. And so I tried on those new prototypes, and I think it was right after they got acquired by Deckers, and they told me more about the company's history. And a lot of the guys in the company go way back with running 220 marathons. There's a couple guys really high up in the company that kind of have that vision, because they were competitive runners themselves trying to qualify for the Olympic trials and the marathon. So you got a couple 220 guys there who ran back in the day with Bill Rogers. And so I talked to them, and I was like, they really fit kind of my mindset, being a road marathoner, but also transitioning into different events, ultra, mountain running. And then I also really liked their marketing approach. They seemed to really come alive with, we could do this and this, we could have ads in these magazines, we're going to do videos, we're going to do photo shoots, and I think this is actually the biggest point, is they actually do involve me a lot with the company. So, yeah. I could give them feedback, and they want feedback on the new prototypes, and I get new prototypes early, which with other companies that I've been sponsored with, I didn't get new prototypes really early, and I didn't feel like I could give that much constructive feedback, maybe in marketing or just the shoe design. So I like being involved with the company, and I like their business approach, and the product's great, and I feel like I'm running well and injury free. So
that's huge. I think it means something too when people kind of get your stamp of approval, not just on they made this and I wear it and it feels fun, whatever. I mean, if you get in on the ground floor and you're a part of that process, then people are like, okay, well, this is a shoe that works for Sage, and he runs ultras. It's a shoe that works for Tony or whatever. I mean, all these ultra runners who are getting more feedback, I think that's kind of crucial. Really quick, sorry, Ethan, if you had planned this as a question or a segment, but this is something I'm always curious about too. Go Eaters is asking about your work and sponsorship funds and prize money. Is that something you can actually get by on and make a living doing this full time?
Yeah, I think that's always been my dream, and it hasn't really become a reality till about this year, I'd say. It's not. I mean, you live a frugal lifestyle. Boulder's honestly probably too expensive of a city for me to be living in right now, but it's definitely doable. The only caveat with that is you have to continue to race well. So you do have to pick maybe races that have some prize money. You do have to podium in those races. So there's always that pressure to do well in races, and also to have maybe a social media presence. I always think that helps. So I've always thrown all my energy into that, and you know, I try to bring in different streams of income. I try to you know, promote my YouTube channel, VO2 Max Productions, and I get some money from Google AdSense on that. So I've got that little stream of income, and then I was selling my book, Running for the Hansons, which I started when I was running for the Brooks Olympic Marathon group, and so I had some income coming from that. And then it was a matter of securing maybe travel support from races or from a sponsor, and then maybe actually getting prize money at races. But you do have to pick and choose your battles. You do have to, you know, do the right races. And I'd say there's very few runners, ultra runners, or even, unless you're like a top track runner or a top marathon runner, it's hard to make it full time and not have a part-time job. Like a lot of runners I know, or when I started trying to go pro after college at Hanson's Brooks, we still worked in the shoe store like 30 hours a week because you had to. And if you don't race a lot, if you don't race frequently, you're probably not going to make enough. And if you get injured, then you might be kind of screwed. So
yeah, I think
job security might not be the best.
I think people have this idea like, oh, it must be so nice. You're sleeping in all day and you run whatever you want, but you're busting your butt to make a living at this.
I do get to sleep in sometimes. That's a huge luxury. Yeah, but no, I do put a lot of effort into the social media marketing because I think it provides value to my sponsors. And I know sometimes I get criticized for that. I fill up the Facebook news feed. I'm constantly plugging product and stuff, but it's because I almost have to, I feel like, and I think there's probably more subtle ways and more creative ways to do it probably, but that's just the way I do marketing, and I think hopefully, you know, it's adding value for my personal brand as an athlete, but also ultimately for the sponsors that support me, and you know, I wouldn't have that sponsor support if it wasn't for the whole running community, if it wasn't for everyone that buys all the products. So I'm grateful, you know, for everyone in the running community that helps contribute to allowing me to live my dreams in the sport. And I know it wasn't always that way, and I had to work, you know, quite a bit, and I think in the future it won't be that way either. So I don't rest on my laurels ever, and I don't take anything for granted because I know it could be taken away really fast, and it's just I'm living the dream right now and trying to enjoy it as much as possible, and hopefully if I could somehow give back a little and doing informative YouTube training talk videos on my YouTube channel, or maybe, you know, posting some cool pictures of a mountain I ran up in Boulder, then that's hopefully productive with my time.
And I actually think this is a good dovetail into the next topic I wanted to talk about, but this is kind of one of the reasons why I really like you, Sage, and respect what you do, is because there's a lot of elite runners out there in the road world and the trail world, in the ultra world and the short distance world, who don't necessarily get social media. Excuse me, this beer is making me burp.
Just let it out, man.
I'm trying, but it's also really alcoholic, and so that's also kicking in right about now. But what you're doing is so far and beyond what a lot of runners are doing, what a lot of elite runners are doing. You're allowing your fans to see what you do. So when you're taking pictures out there on the trail, you know, you're allowing your fans to see where you're running and to kind of experience that with you. And I, as someone who also is trying to make a living doing this, but is not at an elite level whatsoever, I can appreciate that and I respect that. And it actually kind of dovetails back into the YouTube channel, youtube.com/VO2Max Productions. I want to make sure that I promote that. So those of you who are watching, who are Ginger Runner subscribers, go subscribe to that channel as well, because Sage's content is great. Coming from an elite runner who is also filming himself or just filming races that he's at, you've been doing more of that, like the Tarawera and the 50. Did you run a 50K in New Zealand as well with Sandy?
I did, yeah. The Northburn.
Which you won. Which you won, by the way, which was awesome.
It was cut short, right?
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, you have a POV video from that, and basically all this filming that you're doing and editing together, it's like, man, Sage is doing so much more than so many other elites. So I have to give you major kudos for that. You deserve all the adulations and all the accolades from all your fans and stuff like that, because you're going above and beyond what most elite athletes do.
Thanks. I get inspired by your videos though, because your editing's really, really top notch. You and Billy both. You guys got great YouTube channels, and it's exciting to see that in the running community. And video's always been something I've been really passionate about, just kind of the creative aspect of it. And I think with my YouTube channel, I'm shifting more towards the informative training talks, because I like to get the message out there that ultra runners could do speed work. This is what I do. I never am secretive with my training. I post all my runs on Strava.com, so you can see what I do every day. You can see how many miles I run each week, how much vertical I climb, how fast I run on a tempo run, things like that. But yeah, it's my way to interact with the running community through my videos and through comments that I get. And then, of course, I think Twitter and Facebook and now Instagram. I finally just got a smartphone this year.
Oh wow!
I couldn't afford a smartphone till this year. So this is the first year I've had a smartphone. So I just got on Instagram in January, and I knew I'd been missing out totally. But yeah, I'm kind of a social media addict, and but I think it's valuable. Like trying to get sponsorship, that was my first avenue, was to throw my energy into that. And some people might say it's kind of shameless self-promotion, which it kind of is sometimes, but to get your name out there and to attract sponsors, I think you do have to be aggressive, and that's kind of the marketing strategy I've used. And it kind of played out when I was in college at Cornell. I took a couple elective classes in business, and I was really passionate about that and learned about marketing and branding a little bit. I don't really know what I'm doing still, but that's kind of what sparked that.
Yeah.
Well, I love it, man. And that actually that dovetails right into what I wanted to talk about, which is your new film that you've been working on. You started with a Kickstarter campaign, which I have to say you might be the only elite ultra runner to have a Kickstarter campaign, or at least the first that I'm aware of, which I donated to. I believe all of my friends in the SoCal running community, we've all donated to it because we were super inspired by it. I think it's awesome, and anything that we can do to help support your dream. So Mutr Runner is the name of the film. Tell us a little bit about it. When can we see it? When can we see a trailer? We're very, very excited. And what sort of stuff are you filming for it? And are you still filming for it?
So there is a trailer on my YouTube channel.
Right.
You just posted it like a month ago. I'm going to do another trailer, though. I think a second trailer is due soon. And originally, I kind of feel bad, because originally on Kickstarter, I kind of had the timeline set out, and I was thinking I could launch it maybe around now. But then I realized I started getting into the editing, all the nitty gritty, and I really want it to be good. Like I want it to be a level or two above my typical YouTube videos, because they're kind of, I don't put as much time into editing those. But this one, I really want to up the level. I don't want to totally embarrass myself. I want something that everyone who donated to could be proud of, and something that I could put on DVD or digital download, and maybe have even shown at some trail running festivals or stores or film festivals even. So I've been working on it really hard, and I'd realized it's a time-consuming process, and it's going to take a little bit longer than I initially expected. So right now we're shooting for a late summer release date, and I'm done shooting footage. I might have a couple scenes that I might grab here and there, maybe from La Palma last week, but probably not. I've been editing for months and months, but that's really the long process, is trying to figure out how to craft a story and how to get it tied together with footage that I've gotten from around the world, interviews that I've gotten from all sorts of top mountain ultra trail runners. So the title is also, it's an acronym for Mountain Ultra Trail. It's not just MUT, like a dog. It's MUT, Mountain Ultra Trail Running. It's kind of about what I'd see is almost a new breed of ultra runner entering the sport, and then it's also looking at the dynamic of how prize money and sponsorship might be influencing the sport, both in good and bad ways. And then I want it to be informative too. There's advice from all sorts of top runners: Rob Carr, Anna Frost, Stephanie Howe, Max King. The list goes on.
Wow, that's awesome.
With training advice on how anyone, no matter what level you're at, if you're just starting marathons or half marathons or doing your first 50K, or you're an experienced 100-mile veteran, something that they could take away from on an informative training standpoint. And then hopefully it's got some inspiring shots too I've taken from New Zealand, La Palma, all around the U.S. A lot of mountain running in Colorado as well. So I'm trying to tie all that together, and it's going to be about 25 minutes long, I think is the goal. But I'm in the editing process heavy right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, as someone who edits, and Billy can attest to this as well, it takes time. You wouldn't expect it, but you bring all the, like, just even doing one race and filming one race, you bring back all this footage, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, what kind of story am I going to tell, or how am I going to edit this all together? And it's so overwhelming. So yeah, it's a long process. For those of you who are watching, who maybe are waiting for the Mutr Runner film to be released, it's a long process. Give Sage some time.
Yeah, thanks for all the donors, though. I really appreciate all the support. I was blown away that it got funded. I think it was funded within like 3 days. I thought I wasn't even sure it would get funded, and I was like, well, maybe it'll take a month, so I better put 2 months down in case I need extra time. All this support just poured in from people like you, and then other runners in the community that I've never met or I don't even know, but I have their names and I'm giving out gifts, so I do appreciate the support, and thanks for your patience too.
You deserve it, man. You deserve all the support. What you're doing is really great, and no one else is really doing it. So keep doing it.
Oh, thanks.
We're gonna check back into the chat room here in just a little bit, and the post show's coming up where we can actually go through all of your questions. So stick around, everybody. That kind of dovetails into a segment. Sage, I didn't tell you about this segment, but you have it on your website. It's totally easy. You are fantastic at providing advice and helping runners out. And I think on your website you actually refer to it as Sage Advice. So we're going to do a segment where you just give some advice, maybe like one piece of advice to our viewers. And we're calling the segment Sage Advice.
Nice.
That's it. So, Sage, if you could provide one piece of advice to our viewers about running, whether it's road, marathon, short distance running, or trail, whatever piece of advice you could give somebody.
One piece of advice I'd say is to periodize your training. And when I say that, I mean looking at your training maybe in a 7 or 10-day cycle and looking at your training in a month-to-month cycle and say you have to do different things. You can't always follow the same weekly schedule. Just because it's the weekend doesn't necessarily mean you should always do a 20-mile long run. I think variety is kind of the spice of life and the spice of training, and so you definitely have to take some easy days really easy. You have to take some days where you have to not run, maybe like after a race, and recover. And then there's days where you really have to get after it, and you have to do a tempo run at 80% or 85% maximum heart rate, or you have to do a speed work session and hit a certain pace, a certain velocity on the track. So always be changing up your training and looking at maybe a micro training cycle, but also the macro training cycle, and kind of plan accordingly with your goals and to stay motivated like that. I think it helps with keeping you healthy and not injured, and it also helps in progressing your fitness over time if that's your goal. And obviously that's a really complicated process that usually involves a coach, but that would be my advice: periodize your training.
But that's great advice. Also coming from a coach, for those of you who don't know, Sage, you are coaching now, and I believe you've been coaching actually for a while, but can people go to a website where they can hire you actually as their coach and you can help them run?
They can. VO2maxproductions.com. There's our coaching, monthly coaching program on there, and all the advice or all the information's there on the website. And that's VO2 Productions. VO2maxproductions.com.
Yeah, VO2maxproductions.com. Actually get Sage as your coach. An elite runner, it would be incredible.
My girlfriend Sandy Nypaver actually helps out with that too. So we're a team of coaches basically, and she's got the Western States 100-mile experience. She set a couple course records at 100 miles, and she knows how to help me with that. So we work together on it, and it's been really rewarding to help people. We have a variety of athletes, from anyone training for a 5K or 10K on the track to the Western States 100. Another 100-mile Wasatch 100, and anything in between. Age ranges from 18 to 60, men and women. So it's a good variety to have and really rewarding.
And you're actually you're coaching one of our Southern California friends, Chris Price, I believe.
Yeah, who just had a really good race this weekend.
Yeah,
He had a great race. Well,
Yeah.
It was amazing. First place, 100K.
Yep.
It was incredible.
Course record.
Course record, yeah.
Course record, yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing great, really thriving, and yeah, it's been a blast coaching him.
Shout out to Prizzle.
Yep.
So yeah, that is it. That is Sage advice with Sage.
Ah.
It's so peaceful. It's so peaceful. So yeah, go check out vo2maxproductions.com if you guys want to hire Sage as a coach. Now, Sage, this is another segment that I like to do with all of my guests, especially first-time guests. A little segment that I like to call Quickie Question Quiz.
Uh-oh.
It's very easy. I promise it's very easy. All I do is I ask you a list of questions, rapid fire. Just answer them as quickly as you can. That's it.
All right.
But they're very personal, deep, digging questions. No, not really. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. What was your very first race?
100-meter hurdles in 6th grade, and I won. Barely.
Nice. Well done. Best trail that you have ever run?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Probably Maroon Bells 4-pass loop in outside of Aspen, Colorado. It's just spectacular, and it's a 26 or 27-mile loop with it's around 8,000 feet of climbing, but you go over 12,000 feet 4 times, and the views there are just spectacular with mountain lakes and all sorts of jagged peaks.
Wow, sounds epic. Scariest moment on a trail? Maybe an animal encounter, anything like that?
Well, I've had animal encounters. Yeah, it was probably when I saw a mountain lion in Boulder. I was running between Green Mountain and Bear Peak in the saddle there in the middle of the afternoon, and it was about maybe 7,000 feet altitude, just above tree line. And this hiker and his dog were walking down the trail, and they stopped and they pointed out to the side, and they're like, "Look!" And I had my head down. I was running hard up the hill, and I looked over and I saw a mountain lion about 100 feet away, and that got my heart rate going pretty fast.
Yeah.
Kind of scary. Yeah.
Did you end up running down the mountain the same way?
No, I kept going the way it went. It ran off after a couple of seconds, and it ran right in the direction I wanted to go. And so I picked up a rock, not that it would do me any good, and I waited a couple minutes, and we were like, oh yeah, he was scared of us. But I guess he wasn't, because he was lingering for hours around that area, because other people saw him later. But I kind of put my arm above my head and made noise and kept going the same way. But I was a little, it got the butterflies in my stomach going.
Yeah, that would do it for sure. What is your dream race to run?
Probably, well, I've had a lot of dream come trues with races. I'd say, can this be fictional, or is it?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my dream would be to make the Olympic team in the marathon and run in the Olympics, or if ultra running became an Olympic sport, to run in the Olympics and represent the USA in that. But
I really think it should, by the way. I absolutely think it should.
Comrades, I'd say Comrades marathons, definitely a dream race on the bucket list, hopefully.
Billy's had that race experience.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Who is your idol, whether running or otherwise? Who do you look up to the most?
The most. If I had to pick one person, I really respect my parents a lot, just because they've been so supportive of my running all these years, and they just they raised me vegetarian. They raised me in the outdoors in rural Oregon, and I owe a lot to them, just in terms of support. They've always been there for me.
I forgot you're an Oregon boy. Oregon pride.
Yeah.
Favorite post-race indulgence?
Definitely beer, preferably a strong IPA, like the Avery Maharaja or Hog Heaven.
Nice choice. Nice choice.
Definitely a really hoppy beer.
Yeah. What are your current running shoes?
I'm wearing the Hoka 11 Waka, pretty much every day. I change it up. Sometimes I wear the Stinson, sometimes I wear the Clifton, sometimes I wear the Bondi, but usually it's the Waka.
GoPro or DSLR?
Hmm. Probably the GoPro. I don't know how to use my DSLR very well. I did most of my filming. I did most of my filming for Mutr Runner, of course, with the DSLR. But there's definitely going to be some shots with the GoPro. I really do like the DSLR. It's very powerful. It's very nice. But I think the GoPro, I'm not as worried about breaking.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's a key there. Is I could always carry it with me, and it's in its case. I learned how to film. I had fun filming underwater with it a lot. So it's kind of my travel camera that I take everywhere.
What sort of DSLR are you rocking right now?
I have the Canon Rebel T5i.
Nice. Very good choice. Favorite movie? What's your favorite movie currently?
Currently, oh, wow. I still like Office Space a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Have you started watching Silicon Valley on TV at all?
I don't know. I don't have a TV.
Okay.
I would if I did.
I
would if I did, probably. Yeah. I haven't had a TV for 2 years.
Yeah, I watched it on the
I
internet.
could watch it on the internet, but
it's by the same director that did Office Space, and it
oh, okay.
has Office Space written all over it. It's great.
I've seen previews for it. It looks good.
Yeah. And the final question: your favorite ginger?
My favorite ginger?
Yeah.
Ginger Runner.
Yes, of course. Yes, correct answer.
You sweated that one for a second.
Oh my God, what is he gonna say? I hope he says me.
Conan O'Brien.
Excellent answer, Sage.
Okay.
So once again, I have to thank Sage so much for coming on the show. There's so many more questions that I want to ask him. I'm sure Billy wants to ask him, and those of you who are watching live want to ask him as well. So stick around for the post show because we're going to go through the chat room. I'm already seeing tons of comments, so we'll make sure to ask him in the post show.
Nice.
Sage, let's plug all of your social media so people can go follow you in all of these social accounts. Go for it. I'll let you do that.
Twitter's at Sage Canaday. Got a Facebook fan page you could find on Facebook, Sage Canaday fan page. YouTube channel's big. It's VO2 Max Productions on YouTube, and then Instagram is also my full real name, Sage Canaday.
Nice. And of course, Billy, you've been super patient, and I appreciate you monitoring the chat room and jumping in there and stuff like that and chatting with everybody. Where can people find you?
At LA Runner, usually. I'm on Twitter all the time. It's LARUNR. Same thing with Instagram, and then LARunner.com and Billy Yang Films on YouTube. So check those out.
And actually, Billy was at Lake Sonoma, which Sage ran as well, and did an amazing film documenting that race. So go check that out on his YouTube channel as well. And of course, you guys know me as The Ginger Runner. You can find me on all the social networks. Here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheGingerRunner. Be sure to subscribe to VO2 Max Productions and subscribe to youtube.com/ is it Billy Yang Films?
Films, yeah.
Yeah, Billy Yang Films. I want to make sure that that's all spelled out. And you can follow me on all the social networks on Twitter at The Ginger Runner, over on Facebook, facebook.com/TheGingerRunner, on Instagram at Ethan Newberry, and of course gingerrunner.com for all things great and ginger. That is it for Ginger Runner Live. It has been awesome to have Sage here on the show. This has been just incredible. So stick around for the post show where we're going to ask him all the questions that you guys have asked in the chat room. That is it for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And don't forget, this is a podcast now as well. You can find this on iTunes. Just go to iTunes, search for The Ginger Runner, and it's there. You can listen to it while you're running or drinking beer at a bar alone, because, you know, that's what you guys like to do. We'll see you guys next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And get out there. Train hard, race harder, party the hardest. # train, race, beer. All right, stick around for the post show. Bye. Awesome show. Holy crap, Sage. Thank you so much, man. That was great.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. It was fun.
Yeah, of course. And so we're just going to kind of rip through the chat room because I'm sure there's been tons of questions in here, Billy. I know that you've been monitoring it. I'm still stuck like early on in the chat room, so I'm just going to kind of scroll from early on. Sage, how long do you take off before running again after a race like a marathon? Or let's use Transvulcania as an example as well. Also started using the V Fuel. They seem to be easier to digest. Should I take them every 20 minutes in a race or every 30? That's from Jim Guckin.
All right, so my recovery after a road marathon is actually a little longer sometimes than an ultra, just because the pavement beats you up more. But general rule of thumb is I take 5 days totally off, no running, no impact. I'll take up to a week off though if I feel it, if I feel a nagging pain. But yeah, definitely 5 to 7 days, and then I'll come back maybe running every other day or running really, really easy for a week, like having a really low mileage week of just really slow, easy runs. So that would be 2 weeks after. So basically, I feel the race in my legs for 2 weeks, and so I'm really cautious the first week back after taking a solid 5 days off. And I lose a lot of fitness when I do it, but I think my muscles and tendons and joints need to recover, because otherwise I'd get injured.
Yeah. What happens if you have races that are back-to-back, like separated by a week or 2 weeks?
Well, I usually don't try to do that. The one time I did that was last year. I did the Cayuga Trails 50-mile race a week before Mount Washington, the Mount Washington mountain climb in New Hampshire, and it ended up very poorly the second week. So I think I took 3 days off after the 50-mile, and then I tried to jog a couple days in there during the week, and then I tried to race Mount Washington, and I ended up kind of dying and running a lot slower than I did the year before. So I don't recommend. I'm not going to race back-to-back weekends. It's not good for me. I can't recover as fast as a lot of guys.
Nice. Yeah, I think the closest races, the Goo or the V Fuel. He was asking
V Fuel, yes. So the V Fuel, yeah, it's definitely, they're designed to digest better. They have different carbohydrate blend than most gels, and I would say it depends on how fast you're running, and depends on how long your race is, what the weather's like, whether you should take one more frequently or less frequently. I think for me, I take them very frequently. I think once every 20 minutes is pretty frequent, but it's more in terms of how many miles you run in the 20 minutes. So I would do it more by mileage rather than time. So for me at Lake Sonoma, I was almost doing 3 miles in 21 minutes or so. But for people running in a different time range, I have no idea what the person who asked the question, what time range they're in. But if you're running in a different time range, I think if you were taking one every 20 minutes, you'd be taking like 30 during the race, which would be ridiculous. So I think you want to take one maybe every 30 minutes or every 3 miles. So it depends on the race, what pace you're running at, really. I think every 30 minutes would be okay. And I know at the end of Transvulcania, I started forgetting where I was taking them, and I probably only took one every 45 minutes because I was focusing more on trying to get hydrated at the next aid station.
Jimmy and Fargo, if you guys are still in there, we'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, so maybe you want to write it out.
Yeah, I definitely think it like what you were saying is that it could take someone 30 minutes to run 2 miles, but then sometimes someone will run 5 miles in 30 minutes, or whatever that. It's going to be different per person, so it's going to be kind of a trial and error thing. I know that if I'm running a road marathon, that's going to be different than when I'm running an ultra marathon, because the timing and mileage is different. So I wouldn't go by, you need to take a gel every 4 miles. It would be every 25 or 30 minutes or something like that. And I agree. It also depends on the brand and what the product is that I'm consuming.
Sure.
People are talking about getting you a TV sponsor. They want to get you a TV sponsor so they can get you a TV. Brian Keel says, "Get this man a TV sponsor. He needs a TV. What professional doesn't have a TV?"
Well, Sandy, actually, I live with my girlfriend Sandy, and she has a nice TV. We just don't have cable. So we watch movies on her TV. We don't ever watch.
No, it's a major time suck, Sage. Just don't bother.
Yeah, don't even.
If you've gone by this
don't bother.
Don't bother.
I think we unplugged our cable. My roommates and I, over the last couple of years, we got rid of cable long ago, and now all of our shows, if we have any desire to watch them, it's usually online. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Are we going in order, Ethan?
My chat room is already messed up, and like I was way back early, and then I can't reload the comments that are right in the middle. So Billy, if you have something, I'm just now kind of catching up. Go for it.
Okay. There was one question that jumped out to me. Was there, because this is what you do full time, does it ever really feel like a job sometimes?
It definitely does. I've always had running's always been my passion, so it's a dream job. It's a dream come true, and it usually doesn't feel like a job. Like the motivation to get out and run every day has always been there, even when I was in school, even when I was working at the shoe store, or I worked at Cold Stone Ice Cream too once. But that it definitely there's some pressure, I guess. Like, oh, I need to do well in this race to make money, or oh, this would be good for the sponsors. So in that terms, it does feel like a job, but I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that I'm living a dream occupation, and then I'm able to travel the world, and it's definitely kind of a luxury to have enough time to sleep, to have enough time to get in your miles of training, and to be able to eat right. And so it's definitely a really, really flexible job, and it's definitely a dream job, and I'm really grateful to have it, and I know it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, so it's not something I take for granted at all, and it's something I love.
That's awesome. It's definitely nice to try to find a career in this, and to actually have a career in this. Someone like me who's not an elite I'm kind of blown away that it could be a potential job. I really want to make it my job. I don't think I'll ever be an elite runner, so I have to find the alternate ways to try to make that a reality. But like I said earlier, Sage, it's really awesome to follow you and to kind of see what you're doing differently than other elites and making it your real career. It's really great. All the work is paying off. I know you're working your ass off, and it's all paying off for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Scott Van Loo asked about Western. I'm sure that's a question you get quite frequently. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen this year, but next year perhaps?
Oh yeah, definitely for sure next year. I think this year I thought about it too, but and it was a tough choice, but I mean, there's a couple reasons. I'm kind of scared of the 100-mile distance, honestly. I don't know what might happen to me after 100K. With a race like Western, I do want to approach it right. I want to be able to pace it, or at least go there and train on the course ahead of time to know what I'm getting into. And I feel like this year I just didn't have time for it. And I also have a passion for still doing some shorter mountain races. And, with my busy schedule with Mount Washington in June on the same day, with the Skyrunning World Championships on June 28th, I knew I'd have to pick between those two. And, I was like, well, I could represent the U.S. at Skyrunning, go against Kilian again on Mount Blanc. And that sounded more in my interest for this year, at least, than running Western. And then on the flip side, I still want to try to qualify for the Olympic trials and the marathon for 2016 this year. And you have to run under 2:18 to qualify. So I'm looking at doing that, and I don't think training for 100 miles on the trail goes very well with running a sub 2:18 marathon. I don't know an example of any runner that's really smashed it out of the park at 100 miles and then ran significantly under 2:20 in the marathon. It's hard to have range in both events, and I think you just kind of have to pick and choose your battles. So for this year, I still want to work on my speed and the shorter mountain races, and to do the Skyrunning series, to do those 3 races, Speed Goat and all that. And I think if I did Western, I'd have to sacrifice a lot more, and I'd be really beat up from it if I'd even finish it. So that was kind of the decision for this year, but definitely next year, and definitely in the future. It's on the bucket list, as is UTMB.
You're definitely like a hybrid. I think, generally speaking, guys like Timmy Olsen, Tony, Sage, Sage, Kilian, they generally tend to be like a mountain runner or a road runner, but you kind of like to dabble in a little bit of both. I think that's kind of a unique thing to watch. I'm just seeing you run a really fast marathon at Carlsbad one weekend, and then next thing you're jetting off to the Canary Islands and running a 45-miler in volcanic mountains. It's crazy. Really quick, sorry, Ethan. You've raced against Kilian. You've raced against Anton Krupicka. You've raced against Max King. You've raced against Rob Krar. You'll be racing against our buddy Vargo in the next couple of months. Is there anyone that you really enjoy competing against head-to-head amongst those guys?
Well, I mean, Max really inspired me to kind of get into the mountain ultra running scene, just because he's a Oregonian, he's a Cornell grad, he still has the steeplechase record at Cornell, and seeing him move up in distance after being a 2:14 marathoner, kicking my butt at the Olympic trials, was inspiring. And so I really like hanging out with Max and racing with Max. But I pick races based on top competition. I want to line up against all the top guys all at once, and maybe, not doing Western States. That's a top race that it should line up, but it gets so scattered now because you don't have Timothy Olsen coming back, you don't have Killian there, and so I want to do a race where I could race the best. I want to race Carr more. I want to race, especially people. I want to race people that have beaten me, I guess, more. Just because I want to. I have a competitive drive. I have a really strong urge to compete and to show my sponsors, or to actually probably show myself that I could compete with the best and improve just myself too, improve my times on the same courses over the same that I did last year, and improve my place, and just trying to get the most out of myself. And top competition always brings that out.
This is from Jeff Allen, and I'll have a question that comes after it. VO2 channel production, VO2 Max Productions, level and dry humor is what keeps me coming back. They obviously love your channel. I have a question. Right. Do you have the keyboard behind you? Like, do you happen to have the keyboard in the room? That is one of my favorite things that you do. I didn't know you actually played your theme song on the keyboard. You know how to play piano.
Yeah, kind of. It's under Sandy's futon right now, but I recorded that a long time ago, just as a little jingle. It's become what I use, but I definitely should try to upgrade in music. I think you do all your own music, right? I do. It's very impressive, because I thought that's like professionally done. It sounds really, really legit. Mine's obviously very shoddy.
I mean, but the fact that you play piano is like another one of those things that you just don't know about Sage. Like, he plays piano.
My specialty song is Scott Joplin's Maple Leaf Rag. That's what I built up to in all the years of piano lessons, all the Bach festivals, classical music festivals. But Maple Leaf Rag, Scott Joplin, and The Entertainer. I liked Ragtime a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Did you find growing up that you had outlets for creativity? Because I mean, as a filmmaker, as a music maker, and stuff like that, you have all these outlets for this creativity. Did you find yourself doing a lot of that as a kid, like growing up? Did you enjoy it, or was it kind of something that your parents made you do, or?
Oh no. It was all me. I grabbed the video camera. The first video camera they had was this really, well, they had one with a battery backpack, and then it ran regular VHS tapes.
Those. Yep.
And that was too big for me, and I was pretty young at that time. But then we had a mini cassette tape one that I used to carry around all the time. And I'd film crazy footage outside. I'd film the dog. I'd make little paper army soldiers and blow them up with fireworks and film that and things like that. So I've always been fascinated with the visual arts and film. And growing up, I was playing the piano. I played the alto saxophone for all throughout middle school and high school.
Awesome.
And then just playing sports growing up, running around in the woods of Oregon. My parents have 25 acres there in the woods, so we were always outside building forts and playing in the mud and things like that.
Mike Ralph says, Billy, ask Sage his thoughts on Olympic question, please. I'm actually not sure what he's referring to, but that reminded me that I wanted to talk to you about Olympic trials. You've qualified twice for the Olympic trials, yes?
Yep. Yeah, I was the youngest qualifier in 2008 trials, but it was held in 2007. So I qualified while I was a student at Cornell running track. I did my first marathon. My first marathon, I missed the standard by 20 seconds, so then I came back 6 months later and got it by 17 seconds. So,
wait, so
2008.
You ran the New York City Olympic qualifier?
Well, it was during my cross-country season, and I was captain of the cross-country team that year, and we had regionals the very next weekend, regional 10K cross-country. So
Okay.
My deal with my coach was I wasn't going to finish that race. So I started the Olympic trials with the intention of dropping out after 6 miles, which I did. So I started it, I dropped out. I still had to race cross country for the team that fall. I knew I wasn't ready to really crack 220 in the marathon, so I just held off that year. But it was a good experience, and I was the youngest guy there at 21 years old.
Awesome.
Wow, that's incredible.
I believe the question was, do you think we'll come to a point where we'll see ultra racing or ultra running in the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope so. I don't know. They come up with all sorts of Olympic sports now. It might be. I think it would be entertaining if it was maybe even shorter distance mountain running would probably have more of a chance than a super long race, just because of the attention span, maybe. But if you go to short mountain races in Europe, you'd see how many people watch, how many spectators there are. It's pretty energetic and exciting. So hopefully they'll do that or have some sort of more world championship type of events.
That's my hope when I see European races, and I'm sure you've experienced at Transvulcania and other Euro races, Euro type races that you've been to. It's just the spectators. I mean, they're incredible. And if they have that much enthusiasm in Europe for the ultra runners, I mean, just trying to kind of picture an environment like that in the Olympics, I think it could happen. I honestly do.
I hope so, but I also agree that it will either have to be the marathon distance or shorter for attention span purposes. But like the European turnout for those races, I mean, I've never been in person, but just seeing it on footage and photos and stuff, it looks incredible. Like running down the finish line at Transvulcania, what was that like, Sage?
There's hundreds of
200
people.
meters.
There's hundreds of people just from the local town who aren't even runners. They'll just be whole families out, and it's like a big festival. There'll be lines, 3 lines deep of solid people the last quarter mile, and you could just reach your arms out to both sides and give high fives. And I clipped my handheld to my chest so I'd have both arms so I could give more high fives on each side.
That's right.
And they're playing rock and roll music. There's helicopters flying around covering the event. There was a drone flying around filming. There were live updates. There's announcers with loudspeakers. They give you a giant bottle of champagne when you cross the finish line. And all the people, they'd ask for your autograph. They'd ask for pictures. Like hundreds of people. It was the only time I've really felt like a rock star, which was a pretty awesome feeling. It was pretty special. So I was fortunate to be there and to have that kind of support.
That happens every time I come home. It's crazy. Every time I come through the front door, my roommates are there to high five me and take pictures with me. It's incredible. Do you think the sport is changing? Do you think, especially this I don't want to call it a trend because I think it's just the future of it, but road runners, people who are extremely fast at the marathon distance or even shorter distances, moving into the ultra world, do you think that the sport is going to change? Do you think that the ultra marathon sport is going to change because of that? That
sounds like that's what my film Mutr Runner is about.
It's
kind of about that, yeah, but it's definitely a shift. I call it an evolution more of the sport, and I don't think it's going to be this. The sport's definitely changing with more road runners coming in, people from different backgrounds, just numbers in general increasing, and races getting harder to get into, more lotteries, which a lot of people I know wouldn't like. And then there's the prize money issue, doping control issues, things like that. I think that's going to bring a little change, but I don't think there's going to be this flood of road runners crossing over, because a lot of the best road runners are probably going to stick to the roads. A lot of people don't want to run in the mountains for 100 miles. So I think it's still going to stay a pretty, tight-knit community the way it's kind of always been. And there's definitely more and more events popping up. There's more prize money and things like that. And I think doping control should be on top of things more with the amount of money and sponsorship coming in and all those growing opportunities. But I think for the everyday runner, for the masses, it shouldn't really change that much. The people that love the sport, that want to do the sport, are going to keep doing it. And the road runners who are trying to just get into it for the money are going to quit pretty fast, or they're going to get injured, or they're not going to be as good. I think it takes a unique skill set to be able to transition from running flat on the roads to being able to climb. And I think there's different components there, but I don't think there's going to be this mass flood, this mass transition over. I think course records will continue to fall. Top races at the top level get more competitive, they'll get more deep, but I think that's good growth for the sport personally.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've always worried about this too, as being a non-elite and creating videos and creating awareness of specific races and specific trails and kind of the sport in general. You know, I can't help but worry that it's going to turn off a lot of the OG guys, like a lot of the guys who've been doing it for decades, 20 plus years. Here's this new guy coming in, filming races and promoting the idea of ultramarathons. But the reality is that I believe that the sport is growing. I think it is an evolution. I think more people are becoming aware that, hey, you don't have to just run a 10K on the road. You can go run a 10K on trails and actually be surrounded by some of the most beautiful views around, and even distances beyond that. So I agree with you. I think it's an evolution of the sport. I hope to see it grow. I hope to see more races happen in more beautiful remote areas, and I'm excited to see what happens in the next 5 or even 10 years. This comes from Raul Engel. Sage, have you changed your running mechanics or the way you approach runs since you started running with the Hoka brand?
No. No, I haven't changed anything. There was maybe a couple-day transition period, but I've run in all sorts of brands of shoes over the years, and I really I think about my form on and off over the years. I've definitely thought about my form. I've done some running videos on my YouTube channel about running form, and I definitely have pretty shaky form. I'm not really a midfoot striker. I'm more of a heel striker. I overstride, and I just always try to think quick and light on my feet, and that's kind of helped me over the years. No matter what type of shoe I've worn, I think it's always better to try to take quicker steps, but it depends on the person and what they're used to in training. But for me, the transition to Hokas was pretty easy.
I've had the similar experience. Every Hoka that I bring in to my review rotation has been pretty easy to adapt to. Especially easy if it's a recovery run or a long run, because it's so easy to just kind of relax in those shoes and just let the cushion kind of take control.
Yeah. They do feel different. I will say that. They definitely feel different when you first put them on, but in terms of running mechanics, nothing really changes, and I don't think the drop really determines where my foot lands either. Kind of stays the same.
This relates to what you were just saying from Laundry08. Sage, in a recent blog entry, you mentioned you're still a heel striker. Is that something you're working on, or not much of a big deal for you?
I mean, I don't think about it too much because it'll drive me crazy, and I figure like over the years I've never had a running overuse injury, no stress fractures or anything, knock on wood. And so I don't really want to change too much because I think my muscles have gotten used to that slow, lopey stride that I have. I don't think you don't want to be braking, you don't want to be landing in front of your center of mass, obviously. So I mainly just think quick and light, try to stay quick and light on your feet, try to take close to 180 steps a minute. I'm usually around 170, but you know, that's how I've run the whole time, and I think speed work helps you get more efficient with that, doing strides and faster running. You can't run sub 5 minute mile pace and be a horrible heel striker. It's just not going to happen. So definitely doing speed work helps you create a faster turnover.
Have you had a major injury? I feel like you're one of the, I mean, for as much as you race and run, it doesn't seem like it comes up.
I gotta plug my computer in here real quick, sorry. I'm moving. It's running low on battery.
We're getting a tour of his apartment.
Yeah, there's not much to see. Alright, there. I'm good now.
So,
sorry about that.
Yeah, my question again was about injuries. If you've, like, what's been your biggest injury? How do you avoid injuries if you haven't really had one? I mean, for as much as you run and race, it doesn't seem like it's too much of an issue.
Yeah, so I've never had a overuse injury, knock on wood. I think some of it might be, you know, eating healthy, just sleeping, recovering right, but then also I don't run a super high amount of miles. Like I've gone up to 150 miles a week, which is super high in my book. But now I usually run like 90 miles a week, and a lot of top guys you read run way over 100 miles a week. Yeah. So I keep my mileage pretty modest. I take days off after I race, I take a week off. I take little breaks all the time. I don't hesitate to take a day off. So I think that helps with the recovery, and then just eating right and maybe having some getting efficient biomechanically too has helped with that. Rotate my shoes a lot. I always have a fresh pair of Hokas now, and so I've been lucky.
What are your weekends like when it comes to long run? Do you subscribe to like the back-to-backs, or do you generally like to put more volume into one day and then like a little bit into the next? Do you have a theory on that?
I'm not a big believer in the back-to-back. I think if I was training for a 100-mile, I would do back-to-backs, but 50 miles and under, I definitely would never do back-to-back long runs. I usually do a long run, and the next day I run like 8 miles or less, a single-digit day. And so I do my long runs pretty long. I do my long runs pretty hard. I will pick up the pace pretty hard at the end of a long run. And yeah, so I don't always follow a 7-day cycle. I like a 9 or 10-day cycle usually, but I'll mix in uphill tempo runs a lot. I'll do some speed work sometimes on the roads or the track. And I take my easy days really easy. I'll run 2 minutes, 3 minutes a mile slower than my marathon pace on my easy days.
Oh, wow.
Which I think a lot of runners don't do.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard some marathon runners do that as well. Like Meb does that. Runs 2, 3, 4 minutes slower than his race pace.
And look how he's doing. He's got a good longevity in the sport. Won Boston.
This is a great question. This is something that I've wanted to ask many elites. From Keith Whipple. Killian talked in an I Run Far interview about talking a bit while running. Do you ever have conversations with other runners during these ultras?
If he was talking about Transvulcania, I don't know how he was talking because I was too out of breath, especially going up the hills. Sometimes, like maybe the early stages of Lake Sonoma this year, I was running in a pack with Chris Vargo and Max King, and we might say a couple sentences here and there. But it becomes so serious now. Maybe not serious, but it's more competitive that from the gun now in these longer races that packs don't really form that much. So a lot of times you're running alone anyway. And then depending on the person, sometimes you don't really want to talk because you're kind of fiercely competing against them. You might say, oh, look at that. There's a cool moose over there. Or, that's a beautiful lake, or that's a nice sunrise. But I've never had a long, in-depth conversation. And usually I'm breathing hard enough that it's kind of not comfortable to do anyway, especially like later in a race. It's all quiet. Running with Rob for a couple miles, like 40 miles deep into Lake Sonoma, there was silence. There was just us breathing and our feet hitting the ground.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as a talker.
I was going to say, he doesn't strike me as a talker either. Seems like a kind of a quiet dude that just puts out great performance.
I'd say intense. He's intense.
Yeah, intense. He's intense.
Yeah, it was an intense race.
People are talking about beers the night before a race or after a race. Do you ever partake in like one beer the night before a race?
I always have a beer the night before a race. Sometimes two, but usually one.
Attaboy.
I love that. That's awesome.
And then I try to have a beer as soon as I finish a race too. I think at Lake Sonoma I had about 1 minute before crossing the finish line to beer time.
I love it, man. You're living the train race beer motto. You are like the perfect poster boy for it. I love it. That's great.
It's weird. I'm going to take a slight detour, but I mean, it's funny how the behavior we try to kind of emphasize, keep things the same. Don't do anything new on race day. But I feel like I get super anal, like my butt puckers up like the night before a race, and I'm like, I can't touch alcohol. I can't touch, I can only eat pasta and this. But night before a long run, I'm having a beer, I'm having wine, I'm eating. I'm not like pasta and like stuff in my face until I'm blue in the face. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people generally have a tendency to like the night before a race to really get super conservative, and I don't think that's always necessarily should be the case.
What I think is funny, Billy, is that so I never had a beer the night before a race, marathon, short distance, or anything. I was like prescribing to that ideal that you got to stay clean. You keep your body clean the night before a race until the Cuyamaca 100K, which is my first 100K. you and I were both camping, and you were having a beer, and you're like, hey, have a beer. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to have a beer. So I had a beer the night before the Cuyamaca, and sure enough, it's like, it didn't do anything the next day. Like, I didn't feel a single beer while I was out there. The race was hard, yes, but it's not like that one beer set me off.
I feel like a beer.
Oh, Billy. Oh, Billy. Just lost your internet for a second. Say that whole sentence again. I feel like a beer. Yeah,
I feel like a beer or a glass of wine, or if a little bit of this is your thing. Everything in moderation. Just whatever it takes to relax you the night before the race. I think that's fine.
Yeah, and since that day, I've actually had a beer, at least one, the night before every race that I've run, and it's been great. Like before Big Sur, I had a beer, and I had a great race. And it's not like, for someone who, I don't drink beer regularly, but when I do, it doesn't really change my, if I'm having a bunch, then of course, because you'll wake up with a hangover, but it hasn't really altered my ability to run a race in a specific time or anything like that. And obviously, Sage is a great example as well. If he's talking about having a beer before a race, he's still performing with the world's best athletes, so...
I don't think people appreciate just how stacked a race like Transvulcania was. I mean, it's
some of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And Sage is rocking a third place. That's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, that's really super impressive.
Let's see. Ultra running novice. Sage, I started taking V Fuel after your endorsement. They're talking about athlete's code. Do you get any sort of athlete's code for V Fuel, or do you get any sort of benefit by providing an athlete's code or anything like that? We want to make sure that we send people to help you.
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate that support, but I don't actually have a V Fuel one. I do have. There was a link for I don't know if this is legal, on Ultimate Direction on my website, so you should click that link maybe if
That's
you're interested in Ultimate Direction products.
Sure.
But no, not for V Fuel yet. So, but thanks, appreciate it. I probably have time for one more question too.
Yeah, for sure. It's already getting late, so let's get Sage one more question. Billy, have you seen anything in there? I'm just not catching up.
I want to make a good one. Africans and ultra running.
I don't want to waste it on.
Yeah, like.
Tell us about your T-shirt.
What's your favorite color of Hokas that you like wearing?
Oh my God. My chat room's going crazy now.
Yeah, is there anything we missed that you think is worth talking about, or at least touching on a little bit? Sage?
No, I think that was a pretty comprehensive overview of everything. There's not any more questions. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions?
I just want to make sure that we get everyone in the chat room. Oh my God, the chat room is now literally blowing up. I'm so sorry, Sage.
Really?
Give me 1 second.
Oh, that's all right. No, take your time.
Question for the elites: is it better to get a jump on the nutrition early in a race, like taking gels every 20 minutes to stay on top of it before the later stages where the blood bypasses the stomach? This is from Jim McGuckin. That's a good question.
Yes, I would say generally the rule of thumb I was taught when I was racing road marathons even was drink often and drink early. And that would be, in road marathons we used to drink our calories mostly. I think the first 2 road marathons I didn't take any gels actually. But I was drinking Gatorade Red Bull mix.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, with nutrition, especially a longer race, it's good to eat on a regular schedule, and it's good to take advantage of the times when you're not having any stomach problems to make sure you get that in. And that's usually the rule of thumb I have with taking salt too. If I know I'm sweating a lot and it's kind of hot and my stomach feels good, then I know it's a good time to take a salt pill, because when my stomach starts going, if it does start going, it doesn't usually, then I don't like taking anything, as most people. So yeah, I'd say to have a nutrition plan, to follow that schedule, but be prepared to adapt. And you definitely don't want to. This is what I do actually. If there's a big hill coming up, I make sure to eat a little bit more before that hill, because by the time you get up in the middle of the hill, you're working extra hard, you know you're burning extra calories, it's already too late. And if that hill makes you cross a threshold where you're going to start to bonk, it's almost already too late to scoop yourself out from that. You're going to be walking up that hill a lot. So definitely scout out the course, know where the big gaps between aid stations are, and make sure you have enough fuel to eat a lot before then, and then have a plan maybe to eat a lot at an aid station early on in a race, and eat before hills. But yeah, I wouldn't say everyone has to take a V Fuel gel every 20 minutes. You probably could get away with every 30 minutes, especially if you're taking in other calories. But again, it depends on your pace. It depends on the altitude of the race, the weather, how many calories you're drinking, your stomach's tolerance too, things like that.
For sure, totally agree. Especially on the eating right before a big hill. That actually happened during Squamish last year. There's a huge hill right in the middle of the race, right in the middle of the 50-mile race, and down to gel about 15 minutes, 10 minutes right before that hill because I knew it was coming up, and man, that hill went with no problem. That's great advice. Very, very great advice. So once again, I would like to thank Sage so much for coming on the show. It was an awesome, awesome pleasure to have you, man. And just to remind everybody, you can find him on all the social networks as well. Go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/VO2Max Productions, and subscribe. And check out some of his videos, some of his race videos, some of his reviews and stuff like that. Let him know that the Ginger Runner sent you, or that you saw him here on this show. And be sure to follow him on Twitter at Sage Canaday. And on Facebook, you have the new fan page, right? So it's Sage Canaday page.
Yep, that's it.
Cool. And on Instagram as well.
Much.
At Sage Canaday. Thank you so much, Sage. It's been awesome to have you.
Great show. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really
You bet,
appreciate
man.
it.
You bet. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast over on iTunes. Just search for The Ginger Runner. And, of course, Billy Yang, thank you very much for joining us as well.
You got it, man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Billy.
You are a pleasure, Billy. We'll see you guys next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Ginger Runner Live, episode number, I believe it's 16 now. Wow, we're already getting up there. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.